full stack application with you guys with React on the front end. For the API, we're going to use a Node Express app and connecting to MongoDB up in Atlas. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and open up our terminal, and then in here, we're going to start up our npx, create React app, and then we're going to call it a front end, and just app, and then React. Okay, let that ride. We're gonna do Command T so we could open up another tab and we could start working on our API as our front end is still running. And then we're gonna make a directory here where we could say like backend app node. Okay, we're gonna move into this backend node so that we could initialize with npm in the -y just for it to take all of the defaults. This is going to create a package JSON for us where now we're going to be able to install Express and course as well as .env, which I'll show you later what that does. And we're also going to connect to MongoDB. So that should install rather quickly so that we could now create with touch, we could create an index.js, a git ignore, as well as a .env. Okay, anything with a dot in front, it's by default, it's hidden. Okay, and I'm going to show you what the .env is for in a little bit. So in here now, we should be able to open up a code. And once we have it open in VS Code, we could go ahead and get started on our API real quick. So in our index.js, if we want to use the import express from express, if we want to use the import, we got to make sure that we're using the type module here so that my Emmet is not helping me type, and then we say, okay, there, now you picked up. Okay, so type module is going to help us use the import from for ES6 rather than the require for ES5 using the common.js module. And then we're going to also import course from course, and then in here we're also going to now use express, which is brought in by the express module, and we're going to be able to create an app from that express function where the app we can now use course, okay, and also use express.json so that we make sure that we always get JSON when we try to make a post into this API. Okay, so now we have access to this app. We could listen to say port number, right, which we could maybe use just port 4040 for now. The second parameter that it takes is a callback function where we could just say console.log, and we could say API listening on ports. Oh, that was my timer. On ports 4040. Okay, so let's now if you're gonna do that in the same line, we don't need the extra curlies. Okay, so if you have NodeMon already installed, now we should be listening to our API there on here. Beautiful. Now let's create a get method. The first parameter that this method takes, it's the route we want to listen to. The second parameter that it takes, it's a callback function. But if we're going to do it on the same line, we don't need the curlies, okay? And in this callback function, it takes a rec and a res, where we can now res that send something in here, okay? And there's something which is going to make sure that actually just res.json So we could send some JSON on here. We could say like, hey, my from my API. Okay, and then just put a little thumb there. Nice. And then it's still listening port 440. So now we should be able to go into a browser page and we should be able to hit this localhost 4040 and then I get hey for my API. Nice. So that's my API. It's running. Cool. Now we need to create also a post to add and also a delete. And if we have time, then we'll create a puts. For right now, that's our API. Okay. Now in our API, we also gonna connect into our Mongo database so that we could now use this Mongo Client that comes from MongoDB that we installed, okay? And this Mongo Client, well, not like that. Client, again, come on, dude. It's Mongo Client function, okay? It's actually a class where we're gonna create a new instance from it, and we're gonna call it just client, okay? And this Mongo Client, now we could reach in and connect into a database, okay? And this database, we're just gonna call it like backend app node, right? For lack of a better name. Let's give this database a name, so we could give it a database name like this. Okay, and then now we have access to that database. We need to create a collection. So we need to go in and create this collection that's called just students, for example. And let's give this a name of students. Okay. Now none of these databases are created. This database or the collection is created on MongoDB just yet. Okay. So before we do that, we have to make sure that we use the client and the client comes with a connect method, okay? That once it connects, then we just say console log, Mongo connected, okay? And it's not connecting because the Mongo client takes a URI, okay, which is like a long string that Mongo Atlas gives us, okay? So if we go back into our browser, let's go into our Mongo Atlas so that we could start adding things into our Mongo Atlas. Oh, we don't want to do that from this browser. Give me a second, let me go to my other browser. This guy, okay. So we go Mongo Atlas, nice. And then from here, we're going to multi-cloud. I'm gonna log in. I like to log in with my Google stuff so that I don't have to remember another password and all that good stuff. So let's see if we have a cluster already created. Just go ahead and connect to it. We're gonna use the Mongo Compass. And from the Mongo Compass, we're going to click on this link here, this two little things. That means it's going to copy it into your clipboard, and this is going to be our URI. So I'm going to create a const URI, and I'm just going to give it quotes this path here. Okay, now it needs a password. Okay, I don't have the password set right now, so it's not going to connect right now. It's still going to give me an error. Theirs might be a little different now, saying that authentication's failed because I have not added the password. But we usually don't want to add this string in our index.js. Why? Because then otherwise it will reach GitHub and then Mongo is gonna blacklist it, and then you have to create a new one. And we don't want that to happen. So normally you want this string to live inside of our .env. Okay, so we're gonna create a Mongo URI, okay, put it in quotes, close that quotes, And now I could put in that password first to try to connect. Okay. Now, still not gonna work. So let me go ahead and put in that password real quick, so that it's gonna connect for us. Make sure you don't use the more than and the less than signs. Only replace that with your new password. Okay. So now we're not gonna have it in here. We're actually gonna bring it in from a process that Node brings in by default, that allows us to reach into this .env, and now it's going to allow us to get into Mongo URI, which is our environment variable that we set up in our .env. Okay. Now, for us to be able to use this, though, we have to now use that little, not little, but important module of .env slash config. Okay, so now if my password is all good and all this is working, we should have a connection into MongoDB. Okay, now make sure that that is what your Mongo URL looks like, more or less. Okay, I put my password back there, but I'm not going to show you my password, obviously. And then you should have it connected to Mongo. Beautiful. So now let's create a quick post on here. So we could say app.post. Okay, and if you're using a different method, you could have the same route. Okay, you don't have to change the routes. You can have a res and a request and a response, right? And this is going to give us, we could use a callback function here. We could open up the code block, where now we could use students, okay, which is the collection here that we're trying to access, but it's not available just yet in our MongoDB. So let's take a look. Let's go into browse collections and let's see if it's in here. So in here we only have for Mongo Code Test and shopping app. So we don't have this backend app node database or this collection students. Okay, so what's cool about Node, not Node, but Mongo, is that if it's not in there, it's gonna go ahead and create it for us. So in here, we're gonna go ahead and insert one item, okay? And what are we gonna insert? So let's insert a new student. So let's create a new student here, and then let's call it name, and let's give it just John, and then we call it male, and then we say true. Okay, and then this new student object is what we're gonna put inside of here. New student. Okay, and like this, it's gonna be able to add it on here. However, this returns a promise, so we need to handle that promise with an await, wait in front, and also async here. Okay, we could give it a name, and if we wanted to give it a name, but let's just res.send back to the front end, just like item was added to Mongo, so that we know that's so that the front end gets something back. Okay, we always want to send something back. All right, so we haven't worked in our front end. Let's go to front end real quick. Where are you? Front end. Okay, we haven't opened it yet. So now we could do code front end. Okay, and once we open it in VS Code, not the whole thing. I like to keep both here kind of running together so that we can see the differences. Awesome. So what I like to do right away is I like to open up the terminal. I like to go into my source folder, and in there I like to remove files that we don't need, that come from the template, right? So we can say like rm report with vitals, setup, test, logo, we want to remove that, app test, and we remove it. Those index is going to screen because it's looking for report with vitals. We're gonna get rid of that also in the imports. Also, app.js is gonna screen because logo is no longer there. So I'll get rid of all of that and just add an H1. This is React app here. Okay, let's make sure let's try to run it. npm start, and like this. Now we should have our app running. While that is kind of coming up, I want to create a button real quick here where it's gonna get data. Okay, we have that button there, and we're also gonna create one that's gonna add data. Okay, now we already have the post to add data, so how about we do that post real quick? So we could do on click. On that on click, we could do a callback function. We could call it add data, right? But we have not created that function, so let's do it up here. So we could say like const add data, okay, and it's like this. And in here we could say a fetch where we have the path to HTTP localhost, the port number of our server. Now, if we just leave it like this by itself, it's gonna do a get by itself, okay? But if you're gonna do a post, you have to add this extra object in here where you gotta give it a method of post, and then in here you have to also give it an object with headers. I'm sorry, not object there. We'll say headers. Here we give it an object, so we could say in here content type. Okay, and we say here application JSON. Make sure you don't have that misspelled, otherwise it will break. Okay, so we have that. We have our button. Now maybe we want to add a little console log here. Console log at the end. So say added data, for example. Okay, so we can see something on the console log. So let's open up the console log with Command Option J, and now we can hit add data, and it says added data. Okay, well let's see if that's true. Let's take a look inside of our cloud, and we're gonna refresh this guy here, and let's see if our backend app node was created. So now our backend app node database was created inside of our cluster. Now inside of our cluster, it created a students collection just like this, and here we have John and male true. John and male true. Okay, that's great. How about if we don't want this to be hard-coded in the API? We want our API to be a little smarter and get that dynamically. So that's great. Let's go ahead and cut that from there, and let's put it inside of our front end. Okay, from our front end, what we could do is now we could send in a body, okay, that is going to be format JSON, and then we're going to stringify something here. So what we're going to stringify and what are we going to send inside of the body is the new students. Okay, so new student goes here, which is essentially this object of John. Now John was already added. Let's just add Mary, and she's female. So we say male, let's say false. Okay, and then now this object is inside a new student. New student's gonna go here, it's gonna get stringified and pass to JSON. It's gonna pass into body. Body then is gonna be inside of our request. So instead of our request in our API, body is coming from the request, which is coming from the here. So body is inside of a request. So rather than insert new student, because now new student is not available, we're gonna pass in the request body. Okay, so now dynamically it's gonna get that body for us. So let's see if that works. Let's see if Mary it's gonna get added into our database. So we're gonna say add data, data added. Let's go back into our Mongo. Let's refresh this guy real quick. And now we should have a Mary. Okay, Mary and John. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good stuff. Now let's see if we want to delete, or actually let's get some data. So I'm just gonna do Shift Option down to copy that the button and say get data, and then in here we can say get data, right? But if you're not passing anything fancy in here, you don't need these curlies, or I'm sorry, these parentheses, the before, the after. Okay, we haven't created this get data function just yet, so we have to go ahead and create that. So outside of this add data, we're gonna say const get data, and then in here we're going to put this, well, not like that one, not with that one, with the curlies. Yep. And then in here we can essentially copy this entire fetch here. Okay, you can copy this fetch here. Now there's a couple of things that I missed on this fetch, and that is that it returns a promise, and we get a response, where that response we could transfer, convert it to JSON, and then that JSON conversion also returns another promise, which it gives us clean data, like this, where we could just console log this data. Okay, so we could do that. We actually also handle it with a catch at the end. We just get a catch error, and we can say console error, and then we can pass in that error in there. Okay. Why is it complaining? Because new student. Oh, okay. Because get data doesn't know about new student. Okay, that's no problem. So now we're going to just get. If we're going just to do a get, we don't need any of these things here. Okay, so we could get rid of all these things here, but we still need to handle the promises. So I could just copy the promises and paste them down here. And then here I could just say getting data, right? And then once I'm getting data from here, I'm gonna press on the button get data, and let's see if we get something. However, on my API, I'm just sending this empty JSON little message. So now we need to let's make this a little more meaningful, where we could go into students. Instead of students, we could find all students, and then we're gonna convert that into an array, and that it's gonna return a promise, which we need to await. And if we await it, we have to also async right before our parameters. And once we get all the students, we're gonna call them all students, plural. Yep. And then we're gonna send all students here, so we can send all students back into the front end. All right. So let's take a look. Let's go to our front end and let's see if we get data. Oh, we got two buttons on get data. All right. We don't need two buttons to get data. We just need one. Get rid of that one. Get data. Now I'm getting two objects here from the database directly. Okay, but not directly, from the API, and the API is getting the data from the database. Okay, awesome. Let's create a app dot deletes. This should be a straightforward one. Again, we use a callback. We have rec, res, and then in here we use a callback function, and where we get students again. And rather than insert one, we want to find one and delete. Find one and delete. Now we need to pass in here what are we going to look for and delete. Okay, so let's put a pin on this right now for a little second. Let's create that delete button here. So I'm gonna just delete, say delete John, for example, and get data. It's old. I'm gonna just handle delete, for example, and I'm gonna create a new handler here, new function, handle delete, and I'm gonna have this here, where now actually I'm gonna copy this post that we have going on here, and I'm gonna put it into handle deletes, and say change this deleted data. Let's say deleted John, for example, right now. And then rather than post, we're going to use the deletes. And since we don't need to send in a body, we're not going to do that. We're not going to send a body, and we could handle all the promises there. That's perfect. Now in here, it's still gonna look for the delete, but we need to pass it in. We need to pass in some parameters. So in here, we could say ID. Make sure that my postman is exactly what it looks like. Let's see. So we're gonna look for name that equals John, okay? And we're going to do that with a question mark in front so that it passes in as a parameter, okay? And then this name John is gonna pass in to as a parameter into the API, and the API is gonna receive it via the request and then query, okay? And then this request query, it's gonna be name John, okay? So let's console log that. So let's say console log, let's make sure that that's what we're gonna get here. And handle deletes, query John, we should be good. Delete John, let's take a look if our front end will do that for us. Deleted John supposedly, and here is screaming. Obviously it's okay because we don't have anything inside of find one delete, but I want to see my query param, and yep, there is this little object named John. Beautiful. So I can just bring in query request query right inside of my find delete. Okay, so now when I hit my you see John is in there. When I hit my front end, hit delete John, okay, I just hit it and it deleted John supposedly. Let's take a look. Let's refresh on here on the database, and it's still there. Okay, maybe I misspelled John, so yeah, maybe I did. Yep, I did. So let's make sure that we spell it properly. And if all is well, delete John, and deleted John supposedly. So let's get back into the Mongo database and let's take a look, and John is gone. All right, so we got our deletes, we got our post. Now let's do the put real quick. So we can do app dot the puts, so we can update, right? And then we have a slash there, and it takes also a callback function where it takes a request and a response. Okay. Oh, we forgot our response here. Send item deleted. Okay. And this is also a sync. I keep forgetting the awaits and awaits. Okay. We want to make sure we await that. You can give it a name and you can put in a try catch and all that good stuff. But for right now, this would do. And then in here we do a put. Okay. And then we go into the students collection, and then we're gonna find one and not delete or replace, but update. Okay. And this was a little tricky because now we have to reach into that query, the request query that we're getting from the front end, and then we're gonna get that query in here. Okay. But the second parameter, it takes in, okay, what do you want to update it with? What do you want to update it with? Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and just create a forward button here, and I'm gonna handle update. Okay, I haven't created this function, so let's create it. Const handle updates, and here let's see, we're almost up to the 30-minute mark on this tutorial. So I'm just gonna copy this guy. Actually, I'm gonna copy the post. which is a little trickier. I'm gonna just copy that, fetch, and put it down here. Rather than post, I'm gonna do a put, okay? And I'm not gonna send a new student. Maybe I wanna send updated student. So I'm just gonna copy this guy here, this new student, where now I'm gonna just update it. Just say update student with whatever, and then rather than just Marie, I could say like I wanna I wanna just add if she's registered or not. So let's say registered. We say true. Okay, so once we do that, then we could pass in this object, the registered true. Could pass that in as body in here, okay? And so in the put, it's a little tricky because first we have to find the item, and then what are you gonna update it with? So in order to find it, we have to send in some parameters where we could say we're gonna update Mary, which is our only record for right now, because we deleted John. We're gonna update Mary with registered true. Okay, so registered true is coming in as a body. So in here, we're going to create the request with the body. So we do request body. Okay, it's gonna bring in this update student with, which is registered true. Okay, so in here it takes a set function, and in here it's what are we gonna set it with? What are we gonna update it with? Well, we're gonna update it with this body. Okay, we're gonna update it with this body. So we gotta make sure that we call it like this, and we put request body inside of here. Okay, and like this is gonna find it by name Mary, and it's gonna update it with the body that comes from the request, which comes from this body, which is the update student with, which is this object here, registered true. Okay, so let's take a look at our Mongo here. She's not registered as of right now, and I'm gonna go to React, and well, we're not gonna delete John. We're actually going to update Mary. So update Mary. Okay, so we save that. I'm gonna update Mary. Click on this guy. Added data. Well, the console logger didn't update, so it's okay. Let's take a look at the Mongo. Refresh, and now we should have registered true. Okay, and like that, we have created a get, a post, a delete, and an update. Okay, I hope that helped you guys into getting your project started. And if any questions, definitely hit me up. Sorry it took a little long, 33 minutes now, but it's a lot. So just let me know if you need this code. I could send you the repo, and see you next time. Peace.